Hello everyone, welcome to episode 16 of 360 Anything Goes. And if you are listening to this episode, this brand new episode this week, of course, if you listened to Anything Goes last night, the new episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, I actually did talk about how I wasn't sure if I was going to do a new episode of Anything Goes this week because I couldn't quite think of anything to talk about. And so finally, last night, after I did the podcast talking about Dynamite, I thought about it, and then I finally decided that I did want to do an episode of Anything Goes this week, but I couldn't quite think of what, I've been doing Christmas lately. I couldn't really think of what to talk about, so instead of doing another Anything Goes episode of Anything Goes like I did not too long ago, I decided to talk about another one of my favorite Christmas movies, and that is Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Now, on this episode of Anything Goes, I will be talking about the Jim Carey version of the movie, and actually I do eventually want to talk about the original, just half-hour cartoon version of the original Grinch, but since that is shorter, I think sometime before Christmas I might do an episode of Anything Goes where I kind of talk about maybe some of my favorite Christmas specials that have been on. Just right now, just off my head, think of Christmas themed episodes of TV shows that have been on, like The Grinch, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, of course, the most famous one, and different just Christmas specials like that used to be on TV around this time of year. And yes, I know some people probably think it might be too early, but I'm recording this. I got my Buddy the Elf light up sweatshirt on, which I have talked about here on the podcast before. Before I get into the Grinch Stole Christmas, though, just a reminder, this Friday, or tomorrow I should say, since I actually am recording this on Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I forgot to say that. If you're here in the United States anyway, happy Thanksgiving. But tomorrow, Black Friday, or Monday, see, I don't even know my own schedule, but Monday, I start bell ringing for the Salvation Army once again. So if you happen to be here in the Taylor, Michigan area, or anywhere you are, doesn't matter where you are, if you see a bell ringer for the Salvation Army and you have some extra change, you want to be generous, go up and put it in the kettle. I know last year I saw on the news that they were pretty far behind the goal they were going for last year, so we can really use the help. I'll be once again bell ringing Mondays and Tuesdays, 12 to 4. So like I said, if you happen to be in the area and you see me out there, put some, if you have any extra change in the kettle, if you can. It always helps for a very good cause. And now on to this week's episode. Like I said, on this new episode, talking about the movie version of Dr. Seuss's The Grinch, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Sometimes I kind of forget what they actually call the movie. Is it The Grinch Who Stole Christmas or How the Grinch Stole Christmas? But the movie actually is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And the reason I talked about it on this episode of Anything Goes last week, so if you missed it, go ahead and check that out. But the reason I decided on The Grinch was because when it came out, November 17th, 2000, and I remember at the time we took my granny to go see it in the theater for her birthday that year. And for here at my house, watching The Grinch, the cartoon was always a Christmas tradition here. Every year we sat down, usually around Thanksgiving. I believe TBS or TNT airs it, and used to watch it every year. And now this year, actually, this weekend, TBS, instead of the one movie they show, usually the Christmas Story, they're showing 24 hours of Elf. And I know The Grinch is usually one of those popular movies, but I have never seen it. So I will definitely be trying to watch at least some of that this weekend. But yes, The Grinch, it came out November 17th, 2000. And like I said, the reason The Grinch, this movie was special to me, like I said, was because, of course, we took Granny to see it on her birthday. And always, The Grinch was just always, for me, gotta work pro wrestling in here somehow, was always my favorite Thanksgiving tradition. Now, I know here in America, most people here in America talk about, Black Friday, turkey, mashed potatoes, food, the parade, whatever. But for me, that was always my thing for Thanksgiving, was not watching football, was not the food, anything like that. It wasn't even about having a day off of school. It was always the Survivor Series. I remember in the early days, they actually did have it on Thanksgiving, so that was always one of my favorite things. And The Grinch, okay, like I said, reading here, I don't know too much about Rotten Tomatoes. On the website, it says it got 49%. I'm guessing that's not a good score, but like I said, I really don't even know that much about Rotten Tomatoes. Is the higher the percentage a bad score, or is it the lower percentage the better score? I have no idea. And on IMDb, it got a 6.3 out of 10. And for me, I'd have to say that's pretty surprising, because I remember At the time, like I said, when this first came out, I was actually a fan of this movie, and it was also directed by Ron Howard. I was always a big Andy Griffith Show fan, and of course, I'm pretty sure I have talked about on this podcast, Anything Goes, that eventually I would like to do an episode talking about a little Happy Days. So I was definitely excited about that, but it looks like what I'm reading here, that from the reviews mostly, that it got kind of bad reviews, actually. Sorry about that, fans. Had to pause the podcast once again. Still having those little bit of allergy things and stuffy and everything, so I had to pause the recording real quick there so I could talk. But I wanted to look up real quick. I just thought of something. Back in the day, used to watch Siskel and Ebert every Sunday morning, and I wouldn't say it affected my decision or anything, because probably most weeks when I did watch Siskel and Ebert, most of the movies they talked about on the show and reviewed, I probably most of the time were ones I never heard of anyway. And it seems like when there was a movie that I did actually go see, and like in the theaters at the time, they didn't like it. So what I did was I real quick went and looked up what they gave the Grinch, and at the time it looks like it was when Roger Ebert was on his own doing it by himself. And what I found was that he actually did like it looks like, and it appears that he did give it a thumbs up, which I was kind of surprised about, mainly just because when I went back now looking at most of the reviews from the movie look like not that good. I don't know if maybe people thought Jim Carey was a bad choice for the Grinch. I don't know what it was, or if they just didn't like the movie, but I remember Jim Carrey kind of most recently, of course, the movies he's been in, the Sonic movies, the two, and just looked them up too, actually. I saw them and he gave them pretty low scores. So, and I thought in Sonic he was very good. And also another movie he was in, Batman Forever, he played the Riddler, and I thought he did a really good job playing the Riddler. And I know with Jim Carrey, everybody talks about The Mask, and which I probably have seen the whole movie, but I don't even know how many years it's been since I have. And Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, probably I might have seen the whole movie, but if I have, I don't even remember when that was. And Dumb and Dumber, of course. So back to the Grinch. I keep getting distracted. So, of course, we have Jim Carrey in the main role playing Cindy Lou Who, which actually, at Walmart yesterday, I was walking by the toy aisle and saw that they had this whole Barbie doll thing of Cindy Lou Who now at Walmart. Just wanted to bring that up. Not sure why, though. And Christine Barninski, I believe it is, playing Martha Mayhew. And I know this guy. looking at the cast now, I didn't know he was in it though, but Josh Ryan Evans, I'm familiar with this actor because he played the Grinch when he was a kid, I'm guessing, because he was a little person. I remember the old soap Passions that used to air on NBC. Of course, I have done an episode of Anything Goes, talking all about the soaps that I like and everything. Passions, though, I never really watched. I think I may have when All My Children first went off the air. I think I started watching Passions, The Young and the Restless, The Bold and the Beautiful, One Life to Live, General Hospital, like other soaps, to kind of find replacements since they were canceled and off the air, and I just couldn't really get into it. I watched at least a few episodes, I'm sure, of Passions, but I really don't remember that much about it, though just couldn't really get into it. And Jeffrey Tambor, I actually, if you remember, I mentioned him, I think, during the game shows episode a little while back. I did of Anything Goes when Bob Barker passed away, because I actually dedicated that episode to Bob Barker. And the reason is because he was actually the announcer for those seasons that I was talking about of Hollywood Squares. So worked into the game show thing. And Molly Shannon, that sounds familiar, but I can't quite place her. Betty Lou Who and Bill Irwin as Lulu Who. And that's most of the main cast. Like I said, I'm surprised that Josh Ryan Evans from Passions, the soap, was in there. Don't really even remember him being in it, but like I said, I'm sure he was the kid version of the Grinch. And I thought it was cute that they did have a real dog of Max in there and everything. And just a little fact, I remember hearing this, that one of the, and to go back to pro wrestling again, I don't know if it was the original voice of Tony the Tiger, but was at one time former WCW announcer Lee Marshall. I've heard that he actually at one time did the voice of Tony the Tiger. A long time WCW announcer. I remember on Tony Schiavone's podcast What Happened When, he did talk about that actually, but like I said, I'm not sure if he was actually the first voice of Tony the Tiger, but I know he did do it at one time. I remember thinking that was pretty cool at the time. And I thought Lee Marshall actually was kind of an underrated commentator. I mean, he was never really one of the main guys as far as the WCW commentary went, of course, and actually, I don't think he even did that much commentary. He might have a little bit like the days of WCW Thunder, like that. He might have did some of like those shows, but mostly I actually just remember him as a backstage interviewer for the most part. But Lee Marshall, who unfortunately has passed away. And I know I didn't really talk a whole lot about the movie, The Grinch, but this was kind of a last-minute decision. Last night, I did 360 Wrestling Fanatic talking about, or Good Morning Wrestling Fans, or Anything Goes. Yeah, Anything Goes, I should say, about Dynamite last night, and I didn't know what to talk about this week, so I thought about it all night, finally decided on The Grinch, recorded it now, So this is going to be available in probably just a few hours or so. Once again, it is Thanksgiving here in America, so happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And as of right now, I am definitely not sure what I'm going to talk about on next week's episode 16 of Anything Goes. Like I said, eventually I might talk about some of my favorite Christmas specials, different things like that. So just stay tuned to future episodes of Anything Goes right here. And once again, if you are listening to this Thanksgiving episode on Thanksgiving this weekend, special night AEW Rampage on this Saturday, followed by AEW Saturday Collision. Of course, Rampage and Collision are going head to head with the WWE Survivor Series, so it is going to be another live night. And I know I said this last week about Full Gear, but I am going to try to stay up no matter how late the Survivor Series goes. I'm going to try to stay up and do the live special premium live event night podcast of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. I will try to go live, so stay tuned, everyone. Hopefully that will happen this Saturday night. AEW Rampage at 7 p.m., 8 p.m., AEW Saturday Collision. So hope everybody will be able to listen, and I will be back Monday or tomorrow for Good Morning Wrestling Fans, a Friday episode. So stay tuned. Thank you everyone for listening, and until next week, see you later, alligator.